Hello, my friend. Today, I want to tell you my story, my real story of how I learned English. I am not a native speaker. English is not my first language. I started as a beginner, just like you. When I began, I was shy. I was afraid to speak. I made many mistakes. People sometimes laughed at me. Sometimes I even laughed at myself. But deep inside, I wanted one thing. I wanted to speak English well. I wanted to feel confident when I opened my mouth. Maybe you feel the same way. Maybe you have studied English grammar, but when it is time to speak, your mind goes blank. You forget the words. You translate in your head. You feel nervous. This was me. At the beginning, I tried many things. I bought grammar books, I copied long lists of words, I watched movies with subtitles. But after months, nothing changed. I still could not speak. I still could not understand fast English. Then one day, something small changed my journey. I found a graded reader. Do you know what a graded reader is? It is a book written in simple English. It uses fewer words and easier grammar. It is written for learners, not for native speakers. At first, I thought, this is too easy. The sentences looked simple. But when I started reading, something magical happened. For the first time, I could understand the story. I could follow what was happening. I did not stop every 2 seconds to check the dictionary. That day, I realized something very important. Understanding gives confidence. I remember my first book. It was short, maybe 60 pages. I read it slowly, but I understood. After reading, I felt so happy. I told myself, if I can read one book, I can read another. If I can understand this, I can understand more. So, I made a decision. I would use graded readers every single day. Not just once a week, not just when I had free time. Every day. My first routine was small, only 20 minutes a day. I read 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. That's it. But it worked. After 1 month, I had finished 2 books. Finishing a book gave me motivation. It felt like a real achievement. Before, I always felt stuck. Now I felt progress. Little by little, I noticed changes. I started to remember phrases. Not just words, but whole phrases. For example, I read, "She was afraid to open the door." Later, when I spoke, the phrase, "afraid to," came out naturally. I didn't think about grammar. I didn't translate. This was new for me. I was learning English in context, not just rules, not just lists, real English, used in real situations. So, in my beginning stage, this was my secret: graded readers plus daily practice. It was not easy. Some days I was tired. Some days I wanted to skip. But I remembered something. If I stopped, I would go back to zero. If I continued, I would grow. So I continued. And I promise you, if you also continue, you will grow. That was the beginning of my journey. Let me tell you more about graded readers, because they were the heart of my practice. A graded reader is different from a normal English book. A normal book uses thousands of difficult words. The sentences can be long and complex. For a beginner or even intermediate learner, this is too hard. You read one page, then stop. You feel tired. You feel frustrated. But a graded reader is written for learners. It uses simple vocabulary, sometimes only 500 words, sometimes 1,000, sometimes 2,000. The grammar is also easier. But here is the most important part. It still tells a story. Why is a story important? Because a story makes you want to continue. A story makes you curious. You want to know what happens next. When you're curious, your brain learns faster. You are not just memorizing, you are enjoying. This is why I say, graded readers changed my English. Here is exactly how I used them. First, I read silently. I tried to understand the story. If I didn't know one word, I didn't stop. I kept reading. I only stopped if the word was repeated many times and seemed important. Second, I read aloud. I spoke the words out loud like I was the actor. This helped my mouth get used to English sounds. It also made me less shy because I was practicing alone. Third, I repeated. I read the same page again the next day. Not all learners like repetition, but for me, repetition made the language automatic. Fourth, I used listening versions. Many graded readers come with audio. I listened while reading. This gave me double input. My eyes saw the words, and my ears heard the words. This step was very powerful. At first, I only listened slowly, but later, I increased the speed. Slowly, I began to understand English without the text. And finally, after reading and listening, I always tried to retell the story in my own words. Sometimes only 3 or 4 sentences, sometimes longer. It didn't matter if I made mistakes. What mattered was practice. I still remember one book, Sherlock Holmes. After reading, I closed the book and tried to explain, there was a man. He had a problem. Sherlock Holmes helped him. It was simple, but it was speaking practice. Over time, my retells became longer and more natural. Why was this method so effective? Because it used the full loop: input, imitation, output. I was not just reading, I was listening, I was speaking, I was repeating. I was using English, not just studying it. After 3 months of using graded readers daily, I felt a big difference. I could understand simple podcasts. I could speak in longer sentences. I had more confidence. So if you are a beginner or even intermediate, my advice is simple. Start with graded readers. Choose one at your level. Don't worry if it looks too easy. Easy is good. Easy helps you build a strong foundation. Read every day, even just 10 minutes. Read aloud. Listen to the audio. Retell the story. Repeat. If you do this, you will grow faster than with grammar books alone. Now, let's talk about listening and speaking, because these are the skills most learners want. When I started, listening was very hard. Native speakers sounded too fast. I felt like all the words were joined together. I could only catch 1 or 2 words, never the full sentence. But I learned one thing. Listening improves with daily training just like exercise. Here is how I trained my ears. First, I always listened with text. This means I read and listened at the same time. When I listened without text, I understood almost nothing. But with text, I could see the words, connect the sounds, and slowly understand how English really sounds. Second, I used a method called shadowing. Shadowing means speaking at the same time as the audio. I played the audio, and I tried to copy the speaker exactly. The speed, the rhythm, the pronunciation. At first, it was very difficult. I could not keep up. I felt frustrated. But I continued. I chose short clips, maybe 30 seconds. I shadowed again and again. Slowly, I improved. Shadowing taught me two things. It improved my pronunciation because I was copying native speakers. And it improved my fluency because I was speaking without stopping to think. Third, I practiced monologues. This means speaking alone. Every day, I spoke for 1 or 2 minutes about something simple. For example, what I did today, or my favorite food, or my weekend plans. At first, it was short and broken. I made many mistakes, but I recorded myself and listened. I noticed my errors, then I tried again. Each week, I became smoother. Fourth, I did retelling practice. After reading or listening to a story, I closed the book and told the story again in my own words. Retelling was powerful because it made me use new words and grammar naturally. These 4 methods, listening with text, shadowing, monologues, and retelling, built my speaking step by step. I didn't wait for a native speaker partner. I practiced alone. This is important. Many learners think, I need a partner to practice. A partner helps, but you can start today, alone, with your own voice. Speaking alone may feel strange, but it works. Over time, I noticed something amazing. When I listened to English, I understood more. When I spoke, I was faster. I didn't translate in my head. I began to think directly in English. This was the moment I knew my practice was working. Now, let's talk about the 3 big areas: grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. At the beginning, I loved grammar books. I thought grammar would save me. I wanted perfect sentences. But I discovered a secret. Grammar alone will not help you speak. Instead, I used grammar in a practical way. I focused on one pattern at a time. For example, the past tense. I made 10 quick sentences every day. I walked to school. She cooked dinner. They played football. I didn't try to study all grammar at once. Just one pattern per week. Slowly, it became automatic. Next, vocabulary. At first, I wrote long lists, but I forgot them. Then, I discovered phrases are better than single words. For example, instead of learning afford, I learned I can't afford to buy it. Instead of learning interested, I learned I'm interested in. Phrases are ready to use. They make speaking easier. So, I always wrote phrases from my reading and listening. Then, I use them in my speaking and writing. Now, pronunciation. This is important. If people cannot understand you, your confidence will fall. I practice pronunciation with two methods. Reading aloud. Every day, I read a page aloud. Shadowing. I copied native speakers. I focused on stress and intonation, not only individual sounds. English has music. The rhythm is important. Shadowing taught me that rhythm. Step by step, my pronunciation improved. People began to understand me. I felt more confident. So remember this: grammar through patterns, vocabulary through phrases, pronunciation through shadowing. That was my formula. Now, let me share my exact daily routine. This is what I followed from beginner to fluent. When I had only 30 minutes, my routine was 10 minutes listening plus shadowing, 10 minutes speaking alone, monologue or retell, 10 minutes reading aloud or reviewing phrases. When I had 60 minutes, my routine was 15 minutes listening plus shadowing, 15 minutes reading a short text and noting phrases, 15 minutes speaking, 15 minutes writing short sentences. When I had 90 minutes, my routine was 20 minutes intensive listening with transcript, 20 minutes graded reading, reading aloud for 5 minutes, 20 minutes speaking practice, 15 minutes writing, 15 minutes review. This was my secret. Mix all 4 skills every day: listening, reading, speaking, and writing, not just one. I also reviewed. Review is powerful. If you learn a phrase today, use it tomorrow. Use it again next week. Repetition makes it stay in your brain. Some days I felt lazy. Some days I wanted to quit. But I told myself, fluency is not perfection. Fluency is communication. I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to keep going. And slowly, I became fluent. I started to think in English. How? By speaking to myself in English every day, by describing my day in English, by asking myself questions in English. Little by little, my brain switched. English became natural. And that, my friend, is how I went from beginner to fluent. Step by step. Graded readers, listening, speaking, phrases, shadowing, and daily practice. If I can do it, you can do it too.